I was born December 27, 1942, and given the name Judith Ann Sadler. My name was to have been Linda, but my mother's cousin had her baby first and named her little girl Linda. When I went to school, I found out that my name was to be shared with a good many other girls my age. I was born at the beginning of World War II, and food and many necessities were scarce. I was the oldest of 12 children. I was very fortunate to have known both my grandmothers and have a lot of memories of growing up with their constant influence. I also remember nearly all my brothers and sisters growing up. Mom had difficult pregnancies and even miscarried a few times, and it seemed that she quite often needed help. I recall making bread, babysitting, and telling stories to keep the children occupied. It didn't take long to figure out that it was easier to entertain them than to chase them. Mom had a job at the high school cleaning. Sometimes I would work this job for her if she needed help. I liked to make puppets, write and direct, and put on shows. I played the violin in orchestra for 9 years, enjoyed concert choir, English, business classes, and pep club. Some of my memories of growing up in a bustling household was never getting enough sleep. When you sleep in the basement, there was always a good chance that someone would be awake until 10:30 p.m. and walking around on the floor upstairs. There was also a good chance that someone would be awake at 6:30 a.m. One thing I could never figure out was that it was that way even on weekends. Some of my memories include listening to radio shows, shining shoes for the entire family on Saturday, taking up a whole row in the center part of the chapel, haircut that took all day completing because Dad had clippers that worked by hand and not electricity, filling the hopper and emptying the coal ashes, baby bottles that were glass with the nipple stretched over the top, babies that loved to throw glass bottles on elevated wood floors in church just to hear them roll all the way from the back row to the front row, strikes that put Dad off of work that last for more than a year, yet we found enough to eat through such times such as powdered milk, food from Aunt Eve's garden, and duck eggs. I also remember going to Buck's store and charging food. He kept food on our table during those hard times. It took a while to pay back the owner for what he let us have. As a child, he had one of the biggest candy supplies I ever saw in my life. So Barbara, Lon, and I decided if he lets us charge food, why not candy? So when Mom sent us down to the store, we did just that, charge a bunch of candy. We knew immediately that the owner called Mom, and we knew we better not do that again. But we got to keep the candy. Being a creative child, I found myself involved in many self-made situations just to break the monotony. One such situation, my mother had some friends who brought their children over. Lon, Barbara, and I decided to tell the kids that someone was in their house killing our mothers. We all got a chuckle when we saw the look on their faces. We noticed one of the kids ran out to the street and talked to a man who was doing repair work. Then all was forgotten. We figured that no one in their right mind would believe such a story. Later that afternoon, when the friends had gone home, a police car pulled up to our house. The officer got out. We followed him to the door of the house, and when my mother answered, he said, "We understand a murder has been committed here." "Shh," my mother said. "There has?" Lon started to laugh, and the police officer got angry and blamed him and said, "That's what you get for reading so many comic books." In junior high, I realized all this imagination could be used productively by composing stories. Several teachers felt that my writing was too advanced for my age, and many times I had to bring a note from home informing the teachers that I, in fact, written it. As an adult, I wrote a Christmas play, and for many years has been a source of satisfaction to me. It is presented annually to different schools around Salt Lake. I visited my Grandma Sadler daily when she moved into our basement. I thought she was lonely, but when I was grown, I found that all the kids visited her daily. We probably drove her nuts. Sorry, Grandma. She would tell us stories that always had a moral to it. Somehow, she knew just the story for whatever your particular problem that you needed to work on was. I always wanted to try harder after one of her stories were over. When she lived with us, she worked in the Lamanite mission, and Mom and Dad were president and secretary over the mission in our state. There was an endless array of people that came in and out of the house. Barb and I even taught some of the lessons to the new missionaries coming in. We shared a bedroom in Grandma's apartment, and she had a supply of jewelry that would make a pirate proud. One morning we woke up and Grandma was upstairs visiting my mother. We decided we wanted to see her jewelry. We knew we could hear her coming and would have plenty of time to put it away. We got a little carried away and tried on more than we should have. When we heard the door about to open, Barbara froze, but my quick thinking got me out of it again. I threw all my jewelry around my sister's neck and ran to my bed and shut my eyes. I laid there for a long time and listened to Grandma talk to Barb about what she had done. And then she brought her into the bedroom and said, "Why can't you be like your sister?" It was all I could do not to burst into laughter. Grandma was a short woman with long hair past her buttocks. I loved to watch her comb it and braid it on top of her head. She always had combs to put it in that made it look very elegant. Grandma Mitchell Julie was always riding the bus and lived outside Magna because of the smelter smoke. She owned a home there but rarely lived in it. She always had gifts of food that she'd pack carefully in a box and carried lovingly on the bus just to put it into our dirty little hands to eat. She was very economy-minded. I recall shopping all day long to save $1 on food. I easily spent 10 on gas to drive her around, and of course she had no way of knowing this, and always generally offered me $1 for my trouble. I always refused, but she insisted. I remember her tatting, crocheting. She helped bedridden people, and I remember her soaking her badly deformed feet to make them feel better. She never forgot your birthday and always gave us that special thing we didn't dare ask for at Christmas time. She had a green thumb, and our house was filled with plants. She got a lot of satisfaction in making quilts. I am thankful for such a close-knit family who believes in me and supports me even when I don't deserve it. This has made me really believe in myself and encourage me when I need it most. If everyone had such a wonderful family, this world would be in pretty good shape. I am presently working as a preschool teacher and planning on going back to school. I am married to Gary Wendell Hackinson, and I'm grateful to him that he is willing to take a chance with a woman who had 5 children, 4 girls and a boy, and all the responsibilities he's willing to accept. His lifestyle has definitely changed. I'm proud of all my children, Holly, Lisa, Cindy, Laura, and David. Some of my earliest memories of coming to Earth to join the Sadler family involve my partner in crime, co-conspirator, first-year pinholder, my older sister, Judy. I was about 4 years old when I began to rebel. In order to rebel, you need a plan. We thought it out carefully. We would run away to Grandma Sadler's house. On the way, we would stop at the Catholic church, use the holy water to cross ourselves, then on to Grandma's. Judy had to go with me so I wouldn't get lost going across Magna where Grandma lived next door to Falval's grocery store. We would go together on this devilish mission. We packed our suitcases and were on our way. The Catholic church seemed dark and cold. Maybe it was closed, and kind of scary, but somehow it was exciting. Finally we were to Grandma's. "Please don't tell them we're here, okay?" "Okay," she said. Her word was written in stone. What a surprise it was when Mom and Dad dropped by later that day. "Just don't tell them about the Catholic church," we whispered to each other. When I started kindergarten, it was necessary to attend half a day, then wait on the playground for the other half a day until school was out, and then ride the bus home with Judy. Hanging around the school like that, I soon learned to defend myself from the big kids in 4th grade, the sluffers. On one occasion, I got in a fight that was particularly messy, because the playground was a sea of mud from the melting snow. I came home covered with mud. Yes, I was a kindergarten mud wrestler. To my great surprise and embarrassment, my father took my muddy clothing, including my long underwear that were similar to wearing a curse, and showed them all to the principal. Together, my father and the principal examined my muddy clothing. It was muddy, very muddy, they decided. The principal would work on the playground, then he would talk to me and the other mud wrestlers and straighten us out. I didn't realize at the time, but this experience would come in handy later in life for those times when I felt the need to defend Judy and Lon against those bullies who were always just around the corner, or on the bus, or walking home when the snowball bullies would attack, or in our own backyard when we had the infamous neighborhood fight for king of the neighborhood. We did win, by the way. Even though I had a head wound and blood all over my face from a rock someone had thrown, the sight was enough to scare even the meanest of them, Barry Buckner, and they all ran home, and we won by default. Mom came out of the house and asked what happened. I fell off the turkey bars, I told her, happy to be the new king of the neighborhood. As the family began to grow in size, our responsibilities began to grow as well. Being the older children, Judy and I were given power to delegate work to the younger children. I looked at this position as something similar to a captain. Judy would choose her workers, I would choose mine. We would occasionally fight over the hard workers. Sometimes we would just fight over anything. We usually avoided having a physical fight. When Judy and I fought, it was always a mind game. I tried unsuccessfully to electrocute her with an old cactus lamp. Grandma Sadler saved her life, then came after me to avenge the sick crime. She did catch up with me because I was laughing so hard I couldn't run from her. One time, Judy had cut my fingernails when I was taking a nap. My nails had never grown long since then, and I have likewise had no luck taking naps since that day either. There was some underlying conflict between the two captains. One night, as we were setting the table and putting dinner on, we had a disagreement. We began to yell. All the kids were quiet and sat there watching as our bickering grew louder. I was almost certain my sister wouldn't hit me. I felt like I was so tough. She picked up a plate, one of those army plates built to last through any war. Judy spun the plate across the room like an expert frisbee thrower. Fear ran up my spine. The plate lit square on Les's forehead. As he sat there in silence, he fell over and gasped for air, then let out a scream. He was fine. He always acted like that. After our chores were done, we were all allowed to practice our musical instruments. This was a good part of life, the closest thing to a video game of the 50s you could get. Judy played violin, I played cello. Even though this was fun stuff for us as we played our instruments in the basement, one evening we invited our old friend Fear and Imagination in, and without even realizing how we were setting ourselves up, we did just that. Every noise sounded like someone walking. We were home alone, but could tell someone was in the basement with us. Finally, we had enough. We put our instruments away and casually walked towards the door. Only children seem to know that if you don't act afraid, that nothing can harm you. We also didn't want to let on to each other. We were so scared we could barely walk to the door. Slowly opening the door at the same time, the furnace blower turns on and causes the door to open with a big jerk. We knew they were about to get us. It was every kid for themselves. Judy ran right over my back as I went down. She wasn't wasting any time. And neither was I. I picked myself up and was right behind her. Safely upstairs, I looked down at my cello. It had a foot hole in its side. It was wounded. We never did agree who put their foot in my favorite instrument. Christmas at the Sadlers was exciting. We didn't get a lot of presents, and that never really mattered to me. Even as a youngster, I could feel the love we shared as a family. One Christmas, I was allowed to help with a special project. There was a plywood train track and train magically transformed into a village with papier-mâché mountains. That Christmas was one of the best in any of my memories. As I began to mature, I realized even though we had sibling arguments, there was a bond and closeness we shared that could overcome the worst of times if we stayed together. I feel blessed to have been part of 12 brothers and sisters known as the Sadler family. I feel equally as blessed to have my own children, Grant, Corey, Natalie. Our newest member of the family is Corey's wife, Lee. Looking back, I wouldn't change a thing about our family and the hardships we may have had. I feel it was a great growing experience. I truly love each one of my brothers and sisters. Mom and Dad, I don't know how you did it, but now I feel you will surely reap the harvest of your children for the rest of your days. May they be long on this earth. I love you. Barbara.
Alonzo Eugene Sadler, Jr. was named after his father. He's known to us as Lon, the first son and third child of 12. Lon was the type of child to put a baby's clothes on a life-size doll and place it face down on the stairs. Then he'd yell real excitedly, "Mom, come quick!" Or dip his finger in ketchup and say, "Mom, you know that soft spot on the baby's head?" With the help of his sisters, Lon plotted a get-rich scheme. Dad always paid a penny for any nails we found in the driveway. We found a can full of brand new nails and put them all over the driveway so we could find them. I don't ever recall getting paid for those nails or any others after that. Lon is a very intelligent and gifted person. He's always been a scholar, and he went both to BYU and the University of Utah. He was loving and kind to all of his siblings and especially cared for Don. They were very close and shared a great bond together. Lon had to wear a patch on one eye and glasses because he had strabismus. He had corrective surgery when he was 12 years old. It took great courage to face these challenges, and he did it very well. To this day, he is very compassionate to all children, especially to troubled ones. As an adult, he helped troubled youths as a counselor. Lon served a full-time mission in Washington and Oregon, where he met Patricia O'Keefe. They later married. They have 4 daughters and 1 son, Brooke, Wendy, Kim, Stacy, and Sean. They have a foster child, also, Jennifer. Lon has just been released from the bishopric and plans to spend more time with his family. He lives in Cottonwood and works for the LDS Church. He collects antiques and guns and loves deep-sea diving. Les is the 2nd son and 4th child of 12 children. Les was quick to learn. He was talented in many things. He was interested in cars before he could talk. By the time he could walk and talk, he could recognize the model and year of all the cars on the road. He played the piano very well. He rented an organ in December. We all remember the beautiful Christmas music he played that year, and he played without any lessons. He's had many miracles in his life, starting with his birth. His mother had to stay in bed for the last 3 months of the pregnancy in order to save his life. As he got older, he had several bad car accidents. The first one at age 18, where one side of his face had been so severely destroyed that he had to have reconstructive surgery. In fact, he actually died and returned to his body. I guess the Lord didn't need him yet. He married Deborah Bennett. She already had a baby, Venita. Venita was 7 months old, and Les became her father. Then they had Jennifer and Michael. Later, Les and Debbie divorced. Soon, Les moved to Connecticut, and then Washington, D.C. Later, Les decided to come back to Utah. He later met and married an angel named Sally Robinson. By then, Les had all 3 of his children, ages 18, 16, and 14. Sally willingly stepped in and mothered them, just as they needed. Sally and Les will soon welcome their own baby. They have all become a tight-knit family. Venita is talking about serving a mission. They're living in Idaho Falls. Les is top salesman in his new job, and Sally is trained in special education and loves children. In August 1992, Les and Sally plan to be sealed in the LDS Temple as a family forever.
Guy Mitchell Sadler is the 3rd son and the 5th child. Guy loves the great outdoors. In fact, if you mention the Salmon, Colorado, Green, or Snake Rivers, Guy's ready to go. He's a great river runner. Both Guy and Bob enjoy doing this. If Guy could be known for one thing, this would be it. Guy the river runner. Besides his great love for the river, Guy has a love for plants. Guy has a green thumb, just like his grandma Mitchell Dooley. His house is full of beautiful plants. Guy married Tina Marteri on December 29, 1984. Tina already had a son, Tyler, who Guy adopted. He enjoys his wife and son. They live in a nice home in Brigham City. Guy is a leader of AA and has been for 5 years. It's been a great challenge to him overcoming. He works at Thiokol as a combustion engineer. This is a letter Guy wrote December 12, 1986 to his family for a Christmas party he wasn't able to attend. To my family, I'm sorry I'm not here in person tonight, but I am here in spirit. At this time of year, I always think of how lucky I am to belong to a family such as ours. As I remember past Christmases of my childhood, I remember feelings of resentment because there were so many children that there just didn't seem to be quite as much for each one of us as our friends seemed to get. We didn't get the most popular, the most shiny, the most expensive, or the fanciest of the particular item on our wish list each year. Instead of getting those things that always seem to end up broken, discarded, returned, or forgotten, we were given things that can't be bought anywhere at any price. We were given love, compassion, understanding, and integrity. We have parents of such unconditional love and a giving nature that they actually gave their whole lives to us, their children. They gave us the things we needed to become whatever we chose to be. The things they gave us were not worn out, not broken or discarded. They gave us the greatest gifts any parent can give their children. Their gifts will live forever in my heart. And they have been invaluable assets in dealing with life's challenges. The closeness we shared as brothers and sisters is a testimony to Mom and Dad and all they have given us. I pray that we can all pass this great heritage on to our children, as it will surely make the world a better place. To Mom, Dad, Judy, Barbara, Lon, Les, Gary, Bob, Mark, Kay, Don, Annette, and Lorie, thanks for being my family and for all the treasures of love I have shared with you, each of you. Tina, Tyler, and I send our love and wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. Guy, Tina, and Tyler. This letter was read to the family by Bob as we were gathered for our Christmas party. Gary Sadler, a biographical sketch. To begin my life with the beginning of my life, I was born, as I've been told and have since come to believe, with the correct number of appendages and faculties. As I cannot assess these earliest happenings firsthand, I am compelled to rely on the accounts of others. Mom and I shared a room with Bella Spafford's daughter. Bella was the LDS General Relief Society president. In 1952, heavy rains welcomed my homecoming, as did the 5 siblings who preceded me. I am told that this was the year our newly remodeled home was finished and the Spencer Ward Chapel was built. What memory milestones. What comes from the clouds of my earliest recollections? Perhaps my father, mother, brothers, and sisters in their seeming immenseness. Moreover, my most vivid recollection was of people. People all around. People of all kinds to sleep with, people to fight with, people to laugh with, and people to cry with. Praying, family home evenings, and meals seemed to draw the largest crowds. My earliest remembrances are of preschool days, talking with my grandmother, Amelia Sadler, playing outdoors with my brothers Guy and Bob, and taking long naps. Grandma Sadler was a great friend. Baking cookies with her was lots of fun. Playing hide and seek and just plain talking with Grandma was great fun too. Much of my belief structure, work ethic, and faith was formed here. In my younger years, Guy and Bob formed the inner segment of my concentric circle of siblings. I remember a time when Bob and I had an argument over a long-forgotten grievance, which resulted in me striking his head with a shovel blade. What lack of civility. What barbarianism. What hooliganism. How did we ever live through those early years, Bob? Guy and I used to tease Bob about taking the Book of Mormon to Dad on Sunday afternoon and asking him to read it. I've since matured enough to greatly respect Bob for showing such nobility. I remember when Guy and I used to play catch in the winter cold, long before the spring thaw warmed the ground. We used whatever we could find for basketball and played wherever we could find the space. I remember an old beach ball, a homemade rim, and a door we used as a backboard to bank our shots with. I guess Guy and I were real sports brothers. Everything we did revolved around sports. Guy and I were responsible for 90% of those broken windows on the west side of Dad's house. I guess Dad got tired of replacing the windows and finally walled over the openings. One of the only times I've ever seen him acquiesce to such devilish, delinquent doings. Perhaps it was the inevitability of the thing. A new window meant only a soon-to-be broken window. Sorry, Dad, we didn't do it on purpose. It's a shame that all of our bad ball playing was reserved for home so we could save the best to shine in the real games. Life was great in the growing years. Although the fun times are more pleasant to remember, the hard times were there to learn from, too. Sleep-outs, summers, sports, Christmas mornings, camp-outs, Yellowstone, Arizona, first dates, second dates, no dates, heartbreaks, first cars, send-offs, and homecomings. Growing up was great. It hurt sometimes, but more often than not, it was fun. When the childhood business was accomplished, I found myself called to the great California mission of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. When I went into the mission home in June 1971, I remember thinking what an adventurous vacation I would enjoy. Well, I soon learned that it was no vacation. I learned that it was my job to teach of Jesus Christ and Him crucified, and I found myself ill-prepared socially, emotionally, and spiritually. Out on my mission for only 5 days, I received instruction from the wisest and most spiritual men on earth. They taught me about searching within, seeking from above, and giving my all. It's easy to be humble when you have a few developed skills. It's easier still to find a beginning point. From here, the only way to go is up. I supplicated my Heavenly Father and found the talents unknown were talents only to be developed. I personally have a knowledge of my Heavenly Parent because He taught me that speaking and walking in the Spirit is paradoxically a miracle as well as a normal behavior for children that heed His word. Confidence, forthrightness, and boldness are characteristics of those who embrace His Heavenly Parent. Later in my mission, when I would travel from one area to another to train missionaries, I would frequently break into song and compel my companion to sing with me, "I am a child of God." What great truths are found in this simple children's song. My companion and I would sing and laugh and cry, and later teach these wonderful and mysterious truths. God lives, He loves us, and He is never too far away. It was a great pleasure and honor to serve my Father in heaven while on my mission. I appreciate the support of 2 wonderful parents and a myriad of terrific brothers and sisters. When I came home in 1973, I decided to attend Brigham Young University. In 1974, a roommate and I began work on assailing the Guinness World Record for double dating in a 12-hour period. It was during the preliminary stages of screening dates for our assault that I discovered the beautiful young lady I later married. My roommate and I never did make the attempt on the record. Peggy Samaniego was from Tucson, Arizona. Peggy descended from Sonora, Mexico, from ranchers who blended with Mormon Welsh settlers named Hewish. Peggy and I each graduated from Brigham Young University in 1978. I began graduate studies while Peggy pursued her work at the advertising company. I dropped out of school in 1979 when I received a job offer from a publishing company. I left that company for a position with Modern Merchandising. I remained with Modern for almost 9 years, and after spending 11 years in retail, I left to find an industry with fewer acquisitions and relocations. Peggy is presently coordinator of program assessment and development at Salt Lake Community College and enjoys the challenges of her career and 3 wonderful boys. Anna was born in 1976, BJ in 1979, and Kent in 1981. Adam is presently attending Cypress High School, BJ is attending Brockbank Junior High, and Kent is studying at Magna Elementary. I am pleased to have 11 wonderful brothers and sisters and 2 excellent parents. This family has given me stability, love, and comfort throughout the years. Our love for each other has grown, and the Lord has been kind to us all.
Robert Lynn Sadler is the 5th son and 7th child of the 12. Bob's a longtime river runner, just like Guy. Bob's a wonderful cook also. When Bob was in the Navy, he didn't want the boys to know he was a cook because he knew if they found out he would end up in the kitchen. Well, they found out. Whenever Bob would cook for them, they loved it. Bob is the father of James Allen Sadler, who's now 11 years old. Bob takes James to scout events and sports. Bob attends college and is a certified deep-sea diver. This is a letter Bob wrote while in the Navy. Dear Barb, well, here I am in Hawaii. It's Thanksgiving Day and the first day of good weather. I think the bad weather likes to follow me for some reason. 2 days ago, me and a couple of buddies rented a car and proceeded to tour the island of Oahu. We went to Honolulu, Waikiki, Diamond Head, and saw the Bonsai Pipeline. Then we went up in a glider plane 3,000 feet above the island and slowly soared like an eagle to the ground. It was very beautiful and the most unique flying experience I've ever had. You should try it sometime. They have a glider port in Heber. The rest of that day seemed unusually calm, and despite a constant drizzle, it was very warm and pleasant. I went to bed that night feeling that something wasn't right. I fell into a light sleep with no dreams that I can recall. At about 2:30 a.m., 5:30 a.m. your time, I was awakened by a feeling that something was very wrong. Now I hope that everything at home is okay, but what happened the next day is bad enough to last me a long time. At 7:30 a.m. we got a report of an approaching hurricane with wind speeds in excess of 100 miles per hour and a sea status of 8 on a 1 to 10 scale. Anything over 10 is a tidal wave. Well, you guessed it. It was heading right toward Hawaii. Well, it was the decision of some highly schooled, admiral for all ships capable to get underway to try and outrun the incoming storm, which of course included the Ramsey. I had the same type of feeling I get just before shooting a dangerous rapid on the river. We started out of Pearl Harbor behind 2 other ships. The one directly in front of us was the USS Goldsboro, which you may have already heard about on national news. I heard them report over the radio that there were 25 to 35-foot waves just out of the channel. That's when everything started happening. It was like being in a garbage can rolling down a steep hill. The waves were engulfing half of our ship at a time. It was indeed like a small raft taking on a large rapid. The waves increased to 45 feet, one after another. Then the report came over the radio. The Goldsboro had lost 2 men overboard. I could only think of how powerful the water was when I flipped my raft, and try to imagine how much worse it was for those poor guys. Yes, indeed, we were heading right into the hurricane. The next 2 hours were about the worst. I went below and tied myself to my bunk, unable to sleep and numb from fear. Then we turned east and headed away from the storm, unable to do more than 15 knots, and the hurricane was traveling at 13 knots. But slowly the waves got smaller and the hurricane passed, behind us traveling north. The next day we returned to Hawaii, learning one of the men had swam to shore and the other was found washed up on the beach with a broken neck. It was the worst storm to hit Hawaii in 75 years. Today being Thanksgiving, I am thankful to have a family that loves me, and very thankful to be alive. Please relay my love to everyone, and especially to you, Barb. All my love, Bob. Growing up as one of 12 children provides one with childhood that is anything but ordinary. The good and bad times were shared by many and remembered forever by all. Growing up in our family was many different things, but it was never dull or lonely. From my early childhood, I became well oriented with the rich heritage of our family and its history. I remember the daily childhood visits to see Grandma Amelia Sadler. My brothers and I would venture quietly downstairs to her apartment, always close to lunchtime. After knocking on her door, we would scatter into the shadows to hide. As Grandma appeared in the doorway, she would call each one of us by name and invite us inside, doing her best to act surprised as we emerged from our hiding places. We were always amazed that she seemed to know exactly who would show up every day, and would have just the right amount of lunch prepared and waiting for her unannounced guest. No visit with Grandma was complete without a story or two. Although much of what she told us has since faded from memory, the enthusiasm and conviction with which she spoke will ever be remembered. I always left Grandma's feeling far more important than I actually was. My father seemed to possess the same ability to captivate my attention with accounts of his own life and experiences. Of particular interest to me were the accounts of his Depression-era employment with the railroad. These were hard stories of hard times, which invoked my full attention. Perhaps this fascination of mine was a contributing factor to my eventual career as a locomotive engineer. After serving a full-time mission to Washington, I returned home and met my future wife, Penny C. Woolham. We were married in the Salt Lake Temple in February of 1979. I saw at that time in Penny the qualities to be a good wife and a good mother. Throughout our marriage, she has never failed to create an atmosphere of warmth and love in our home, wherever our home may have been. We have been blessed with 3 wonderful sons, Justin, Jeffrey, and Jason. I feel it is a magnificent privilege to be a small part of this great family organization, and to share in its triumphs of the past, as well as its hopes for the future. Written by Mark Sadler on November 4th, 1990.
Kay is the 7th son and the 9th child of 12. A beautiful, talented, and loving son. He was well-adjusted and happy growing up. He had lots of friends and popularity around his peer groups. He met Cindy Robinson while still in high school. Cindy's grandparents were Lee and Lavina Hardman Robinson. Lee is Gene's cousin. It was difficult for Kay to leave Cindy for his mission to Japan, but somehow he got through it. Cindy waited for Kay. He came back speaking that strange language. It wasn't long before there was a lovely wedding. Cindy and Kay have worked hard together. Cindy became a nurse while Kay was in Japan. They managed to support each other while they furthered their education. Cindy works nights at Pioneer Valley Hospital. This way she can be home in the day with her 4 daughters, Shandon, Candace, Tiffany, and Danielle. They have a home in Murray. Kay works for West Valley City in the Emergency 911 department. He's researching earthquake preparedness and gives seminars on the subject. He's been to Washington, D.C., and many other places. They are also very busy in the ward. Don Russell Sadler, the 8th son, 10th child of 12. A loving, caring, and quiet child. When Don was 5 years old, the family loaded up in the wood panel station wagon. It was just a few days before Christmas. They delivered fruitcakes and went caroling to family and friends. And on the way home, went past the airport to see President Johnson, who was coming into town that night. It had been a long evening, and everybody was half asleep. They finally got home, and everybody went inside the house and right to bed. With all the coats and blankets left in the car, nobody seemed to notice Don was buried in the mess and left in the car. Usually Mom and Dad have a head count, but not this time. They were a little tired. A couple of hours later, Don woke up in the car and he could hear noises. He looked around, and in the corner of the garage, Don could see 2 eyes staring at him. He felt as if he were real quiet, that he could sneak out on the other side of the car and that the eyes of that thing wouldn't get him. He ran to the front door and was yelling, let me in, help. Then he decided, oh no, that thing is going to get me. So he ran to the back door screaming and yelling, banging on the door to let me in. Then he ran back to the front door. He kept running around the house yelling, well, his mom was inside trying to get him, but she kept missing him. When she was at the front door, he was at the back. She kept going back and forth as well. Finally, she woke up Dad, and he stayed at the back door while she stayed at the front. Don finally found safety. He was so cold that night, he had to sleep between Mom and Dad just so he could thaw out. Don had epilepsy as a child. With the medication he took, it slowed him down quite a bit. He felt it was controlling his life. Well, Don wanted to play sports, but with his condition, his dad felt he shouldn't play. Don felt left out. Kay got him interested in doing a play at school, the play's Brigadoon. Well, Don was so excited at first, but after a few weeks, he started thinking that this was a great way to meet girls. So meeting girls is what kept him going. But once it got into his blood, it became one of his greatest talents. He was a definite natural. Nobody in the family knew he could sing, and he surprised everybody when he sang solos. He played Nathan Detroit in Guys and Dolls. He also played the rabbit in Harvey, just to name a few. He's played big parts at Promise Valley Playhouse. He was Captain Von Trapp in Sound of Music, and he's doing another play soon called Oklahoma. Don loves to draft. He wants to design his family's house one day. His work is his hobby. He went on a mission to California just like his brother Gary. He was a very spiritual missionary when he returned home. Don met his wife Kathy Durbridge while disco dancing one evening. What was so funny about it was neither one of them wanted to go out that night. Kathy's cousin talked her into going, and Don's friend talked him into going as well. Kathy wasn't feeling very well and wasn't in the mood for this. Well, Don took one look at Kathy and knew this was it. He asked her to dance, and they ended up dancing all night long. Kathy said there was never a dull moment with Disco Don. 2 weeks later, on Christmas Eve, in Kathy's driveway, Don asked Kathy to marry him. They did just that, May 15th, 1981. Now they have 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, Russell, Chase, Tanya, and Brian.
Annette's story. I am the 11th of 12 children. Being born in this lot entitled me to all the privileges and protection of 8 older brothers and 2 sisters. Then, of course, came number 12, Lorie. And we are as close as sisters can be. I am so grateful to my parents for enduring the trials of a large family and for having as many children as they did. If it were not so, I would not be here, nor would I have been able to partake of the rich experience of being a member of this wonderfully close-knit family. I have experienced many downfalls as well as accomplishments thus far in my life. I have been on the receiving end of the loving outreached hands of my parents and siblings. Many times they have helped to pick me up and dust me off. They always have had faith in me. All of us reach out to those who are in need. The accomplishments I am most proud of is being a wife and mother in my own family. I married Norbert Chesnegi, August 6, 1988. We now have 4 very special children, Anthony, Christopher, and the twins, Cody and Tiffany. I would like to say how grateful I am to each member of my family and for the influence each one of them has been to me. I am grateful for the gospel of Jesus Christ, the teachings of which have been of great worth, comfort, and joy to me. I know the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is true and worth living. I love my family and all the things I have received. Count me among the company of the truly blessed. Lorie, the youngest of 12 children. I was born on August 27, 1963 in Salt Lake City, Utah. The home and family in which I was blessed to come was that of Alonzo Eugene Sadler and Dorene Sadler. I'm the youngest of 12 children. My first memories are that of a busy household, my older brothers and sisters going about various duties. I was lucky enough to have an older sister, Annette, close to my age, to grow up with. I did everything with her. Mom tells a story of when it was time for Annette to start kindergarten. I was left with no one to play with. So the first day she left for school, I ended up missing. I was later found at school, determined to stay looking for Annette. As long as I can remember, Annette has not only been my sister, she's been my friend. All through my school years, I enjoyed making friends, sports, dancing, and my favorite, baton twirling. Another part in my life that stands out is our family vacations. They were planned several months prior, and everyone was involved. Christmas was indeed my most favorite. Annette and I would plan out what and who we would buy for the family. This took a lot of time. Dad would take us out and pick out a tree. Mom was always in the kitchen with us making goodies. Then Christmas Eve came, and finally it was time. Our long-awaited plans of gift-giving came. My mom and dad both truly showed the example of very hard work. I was raised to understand that everything worthwhile was worth working for. I met and married Randy Richardson, after which we moved to California. It was hard, but we are glad we did it. It allowed many opportunities by doing so. Our first baby girl was Amanda, born December 1st, 1981. She was 6 weeks earlier than expected. She weighed 4 pounds and stayed in the hospital 10 days. It was very hard not to be able to bring your baby home. We couldn't even hold her till she was 5 days old. When she was 1, I decided to go back to college. So I did for 3 years. Then we decided to move back to Salt Lake. We bought a home in Magna. It was great being back home. Soon after we moved, Ashley was born December 16, 1984. She was 4 weeks early and weighed 4 pounds. However, she came home from the hospital when I did. In 1986, I discovered I would have another baby. So, I decided to stay home and carry this baby to term if possible. I had to keep a monitor on me for 2 hours a day to monitor the contractions. I had to talk with a nurse every day. Just before birth, Randy and I had been planning to go through the temple on March 31st, 1987. We went through the LDS temple and had our children sealed to us for time and eternity. This was a happy time in all of our family's lives. On July 20, 1987, our third baby girl, Tracy, was born. Only 3 days before her due date, she weighed 5 pounds. Our family was transferred to Idaho Falls, and while there, I became pregnant with the fourth child. The following January, our family was once again transferred to Des Moines, Iowa. It was a more difficult move because loved ones would even be further away, but now I can see how it has strengthened our family. On June 17, 1991, we had our baby boy, Ty Brady, a healthy full-term baby at 6 pounds. I thank the Lord for letting all my babies have a fighting chance. As for life now, I am a mother and doing the same thing that my mother did for me to my children. I am grateful for the strong family ties that I grew up with and that I understand the great importance of families. I am proud to be among the Sadler descendants and to be able to teach the gospel principles by example to my children. At this time, I'm still in Des Moines, Iowa with my husband Randy and our children, Amanda 10, Ashley 7, Tracy 4, Ty 8 months.
Don't always get the last word, but I thought I'd like to add a word to what's been said about the family, particularly as Dorene expressed herself. She's been the joy of my life, and those 12 sons and daughters that came to our family just doubled that joy. And I feel to compliment each one of them for the fine things they've done in helping me with my job and helping me to reach this goal of being a father and leader in the posterity that we have today. I can't say enough to express my appreciation for all my descendants and those who they have entertained and entered into marriage with and have as their friends. They're a great group of people. I couldn't ask for anything more heavenly than that. Thank you very much.